one that I can very confidently put into the 5-star sector here. And I'll be cheating a little bit here, but you'll maybe you'll be able to roll with me. Metal Gear Solid, the HD collection specifically. So, as I get continued texts about thunderstorms that coming into my area today, it's very scary. Let's talk about Metal Gear Solid, the HD collection, specifically the version containing Metal Gear Solid 2 HD and Metal Gear Solid 3 HD. I know there is an HD collection that includes Peace Walker. I enjoy Peace Walker. I have not played enough of it. I have played it, I finished it, but I haven't absorbed it to the point where I could give it a review. And it's not every version of the HD collection has Peace Walker. So this is the one that I bought on Xbox. Just had Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3. So that's what I'm giving a review to specifically. I would probably give the PS2 versions 5 stars as well, but the HD collection were pretty faithful remasters, like didn't really change it. They were the same game, just done up better. And in my opinion, the HD collection is the definitive way to play those two games. There's a lot of times where it's better to play a game in original hardware. As somebody who loves the Metal Gear series with all my heart, it's my favorite series ever. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 are my favorite games. They're not I will admit that like Witcher 3, even though they're both, 5-star games, I'd argue The Witcher 3 is a little better, maybe to the overall person. These two games are my favorites of all time. Foxhound tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. My stupid, horrible prison tattoo. But yeah, and let's kind of break these open a little bit. I tried to go back. Well, I'm currently in the process of going back and playing the HD collection just to kind of refresh it. I try to do it once a year. See, like, does it still hold up? Because it's important to me to play one of my favorite pieces of art. I don't know what I'm hoping happens every year, or if I'm like challenging myself to see maybe this is the year I don't like it. Maybe this is the year I realize Hideo Kojima just got a little too horny sometimes, or a little too out there. It still captures me every single time, every character, every moment, every new room you walk into, every time you get an exposition dump, every new cutscene. It's just Metal Gear Solid is my favorite series to experience. I'll talk a little bit more about the series as we go through the Spectacular today. I will at some point review every single Metal Gear game, Solid or otherwise. It's kind of like a personal mission of mine. But for right now, the only one that I could put at 5 stars, perfect game, was the HD collection featuring Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. I still consider them almost the same game. Just one is almost like a DLC of the other before the eras of DLC like that. I can't unconnect those games. I remember playing Metal Gear Solid 2 as a kid, being blown the F away by just everything, by the story, by the themes that I didn't even get yet. Like I mess this up every single time I try to say it. And I want to be an English teacher, right? And I can't even say nuclear proliferation. There it is. Nuclear proliferation. That is very difficult for me to say. Nuclear proliferation. First time I ever heard about that, which is a central theme to that whole series. World peace, conflicts between cultures. I mean, Metal Gear Solid has it all. Future Sound Productions does a much better job than I could ever dream of doing in terms of breaking down the themes and just what happens in the Metal Gear Solid series. So I highly recommend checking out their videos. I mean, they rip apart this series, dissect almost every second of it. And again, I highly recommend checking them out. So you'll notice a lot when I do these reviews and I'm talking about games. I talk a lot about feeling You know, I could break down aspects of game design and gameplay. I don't understand that. I don't know how a game is designed. I kind of do, a little more than usual. I have no concept of how it's put together. I could just say, oh, this was a really fun, bit of gameplay they gave me. The just how it felt like every room you walked into, and I'm talking specifically about Metal Gear Solid 2 right now. It felt like every single room you walked into had a fun little challenge. It was a puzzle game, really. It was a stealth game, but kind of designed as a puzzle game. Just knowing where people are looking, memorizing patterns. I mean, there's more. It's closer to Pac-Man than it is Splinter Cell. Even though Splinter Cell came out second, but you know what I mean. Like, it had this coat of paint that made it seem like this very dramatic. It was a very dramatic military, conspiratorial spy drama, but it's like a puzzle game, arcadey type, over the top puzzle game with boss battles, with collectibles. It walked the line of you're playing a video game and you're experiencing a big cinematic whatever. It just treaded that line so great. Sometimes a little too on the nose, like when the people on the Kodak would be like, "Oh, go to the node and push the action button." Like, you couldn't put that in parentheses or something. But I was lucky enough to play this in my formative years, Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was lucky to continue to grow with it and really pick up on a piece of art that aged well, that still sticks, that probably it matters more now than ever. It's more relevant now than ever. A lot of the themes talked about in Metal Gear Solid 2. Lack of control, government overreach, privacy, like all these themes are touched on heavily in this game. Metal Gear Solid does great. And again, as an aspiring English teacher, themes. Every game in Hideo Kojima's the 5 or 6. I think 5 or 6. I don't know if he gave one to Peace Walker, but it was like meme, Gene, scene. Like they had these big themes to them, very central themes. I think Metal Gear Solid 2 was meme, passing things down. And it does a good job of capturing that. And it's pretty cool to look back on old internet discourse about Metal Gear Solid 2, how about like these people were disappointed and shocked at what can only be assumed. You know what? Let's talk about it a little bit. Probably a little bit of hidden homophobia. Yeah, I'll go there. I will go there. But a little bit of hidden homophobia when it came down to the character of Raiden, who's heterosexual as far as we know, which is just even another ridiculous layer that kind of fans or otherwise just the shit he takes. Let's talk about it if you don't know. If you don't know, Solid Snake is sort of the main man in the Metal Gear Solid series. It makes sense. And in Metal Gear Solid 1, he's a real, at least he starts off this way. Good looking, cocky, confident, real James Bond type. Real action hero type. And then kind of as Metal Gear Solid 1 progresses, he loses his shit. He goes through a lot. Finds out he has a brother who he has to kill. It's something maybe if you played it for the first time, you weren't paying attention to. You didn't realize it. You just like, oh, Solid Snake's so fucking cool, and he gets the girl at the end. But I'm paying attention to the story. This is a guy slowly losing his grip on reality because everyone who sends him on this mission is fucking lying to him. Master Miller, the double cross. Like, think about everything Snake goes through in Metal Gear Solid 1. All the trust issues he's going to have after that. A lot of trauma. And in Metal Gear Solid 2, you get a completely different Snake. Like, in the tank, I was reading an article somewhere, and I wish I can find it. But someone was describing Solid Snake as just much more laid back, introspective, wiser, older and wiser. A guy who's been through some stuff. He's not some cocky, hitting on Mei Ling anymore. He's a traumatized guy. He's hurt. He had to kill his father, had to kill his brother. Like, really, really hurt guy. And that's really why I love the character. And why I felt he's a pretty relatable character. All the military and conspiracy and spy stuff aside. Solid Snake's just a guy with family issues, very deep family issues. But the transition to Raiden after the tanker chapter, I looked at a lot of discourse, like it messed with a lot of people. It bothered a lot of people in a really serious way that they were forced to play as this girly man Raiden. And I take some umbrage with that. Raiden is one of my favorite characters in the Metal Gear Solid, in the whole of Metal Gear. I think he's great. He's Snake's ward. He's Snake's buddy. He's you know what I mean? Like, Snake is his mentor. He really is. They're tied together throughout the series when they're introduced. People don't realize, like, even into 4, he's not a better character because they made him into a cyborg ninja. He's a better character because his friendship with Snake developed. And they really showed those two guys effing, trying to swear a little less. Those two guys really cared about each other. They still care about each other, you know, no matter what happened to Snake or Raiden. But the relationship that's explored between Raiden and Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid 2, I think it's beautiful. You say what you want, make your little snide comments. Oh, that's gay. That's this. That's whatever, you know. Then you've never had a deep, meaningful friendship in your life and you can't relate. And I feel sorry for you. That real, like, Snake took to Raiden. He saw Raiden getting hosed the same way he did. And you know what he didn't do? He didn't just go nuclear and try to change everything right. He just tried to be a better friend to him and steer him on the right path. Oh, making mistakes of his own and lying to him, claiming he's Iroquois Pliskin and all that. Like, the story of Snake and Raiden is it's a friendship between two fellas. And I like that could be explored in that way. It doesn't have to be some big macho thing, because it's not. They fight, they have the big thing, you know, like, but in between the moments of fighting, like, they're not quipping at each other. I mean, think of at the end where you got to fight all the Arsenal Tengus. And they're all, you know, I mean, Snake and Raiden are strapping up, putting their guns on, and in that moment, Snake takes the time to kind of give some fatherly advice to Raiden, you know? Believe in something, take something and pass it on. That whole speech. He's not giving any badass quotes. He's not going, we're going to go in there and we're going to rip some Tengu ass. No, he's taking a moment before a very tense fight and saying, Raiden, you know, believe in something, fight for it, and pass it on. A very beautiful moment. This game is filled with beautiful and profound moments. I could explore all of them. I could be here all day. I've already spent a very large chunk of this video talking about just Metal Gear Solid 2. And, you know, to maybe save myself some time, Metal Gear Solid 3 is all of what I just talked about and a little more. And just a little better. I don't feel like Metal Gear Solid 3 can exist the way it does, though, without Metal Gear Solid 2. I feel like Metal Gear Solid 2 gave it this beautiful base that 3 just came, latched onto, and just to the moon. Metal Gear Solid 3, a lot of the goofiness is even, like, integrated a little better. MGS2 could be very in your face with some of the goofiness, and that's fine. I really don't mind. MGS1 was pretty whack, too. But, Metal Gear Solid 3 is... it's even more... Like, if, you know, MGS2 is 5 stars. MGS3 is super 5 stars. You know. But I believe those games should be played back to back together, almost like Queen. It's what was it? We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. It's actually exactly like that to me. That's one song. Say what you want. Maybe Queen has split them up live a couple of times. We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions are one song. Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 is one game in the best way. So I feel like I'd just be repeating myself if I said the same thing. So Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3.